So what's the ideal age of woman that a man should be looking for to date to ensure that he's happy in a relationship and also she's happy and gets what she wants?
All right, half your age plus 7. No. Okay, this is a complex question. Okay, so in general, I would say that dating girls in their early to mid 20s is the most fun. And when I say it's the most fun, I mean that, you know, those girls are not thinking usually too seriously. So they just want to have an enjoyable relationship that's fun and where they get to experience new things and learn new things. And they're usually interested in spending time with a guy who's different than their past experience. So it's kind of about exploration, and so it's very like light and fun. And so that can be really great. And if you're a few years older than they are, or more years older, but whatever, you generally have many experiences in your life that will be unique and interesting to them, that you can either take them to or involve them in, that they would enjoy. So that's for that age. Now, when you get above mid 20s into the late 20s and early 30s, it can become and often becomes a lot more challenging. This actually varies also by culture. So in Asia, it's definitely more around, you know, late 20s, 27, 28, whereas in the West, maybe it's more towards 30. But at that age, when girls are starting to think, okay, you know, I need to think more seriously about having a long-term relationship, about having kids, about getting married, then what happens is that they put a lot more pressure on the relationship in the beginning to go somewhere. So, you know, you might see a girl on Tinder who says, oh, I'm looking for a husband, and this sort of thing. And so when you meet that girl for the first time, she's already evaluating, oh, is this someone who I could marry? And that just puts so much pressure on that every interaction, because even when a girl is just looking for fun, what girls are doing is, attractive girls are looking for a reason to eliminate you. If you know, or a reason to eliminate the guy, because if you're an attractive girl, you're just having guys throwing themselves at you all the time, and you don't even have to be that attractive. But girls just have guys throwing themselves at them all the time, and because of that, girls are always being selective, and they're always looking for reasons to eliminate. So that, you know, just like an Ivy League school is looking for any reason to eliminate someone just to reduce the number of applications they look through, attractive women are doing the same thing. They're looking for reasons to eliminate you. And so with the younger girl that I was talking about, younger girls, they're looking for reasons to eliminate you, but mostly it's like, are they having a good time with you? Is it fun interacting with you? You know, are you not weird? You know, things like that. Whereas when you get to a woman who is thinking about marriage and kids, she's eliminating you for even more reasons. And this is, of course, I think this is a real issue that for women, it's tough for them, because as they get older, they tend to have more criteria. But at the same time, the more criteria they have, as they're increasing the number of criteria they have, the number of guys who are interested is also decreasing. So they have this really difficult problem. And the only solution is to have less criteria, but of course that means that they have to spend more time dating, they have to spend more time with guys that they don't really enjoy being around, and things like that. And, you know, from a guy's perspective, it's a small risk. I mean, for us, we have to take girls that we don't really necessarily want to be with on dates all the time, because we don't know the chick, and we got to take her out, and we got to pay for her. And we're just used to that. It's just like, you know, we go on a shitty date and we have to pay for it. That's just the way it is. Girls go, oh, I had to go on a shitty date and I had to sit there at dinner and act like I didn't hate him or whatever. But for them, they really hate that a lot more, you know, whereas we just feel like it's a cost of doing business, as it were. And anyway, so I think that, so in general, because it puts so much pressure on the relationship from the beginning, it doesn't give the guy as much time to enjoy the relationship and enjoy getting to know the girl. It just, you know, because there's this pressure on it for it to go somewhere. Now then once you get past that to like maybe more like 35, once the women have decided or realized, okay, maybe kids isn't in the cards for me, maybe marriage isn't in the cards for me, then a lot of times it starts to be more fun again, because now they don't care about the pressure as much, and the number of criteria is maybe off because they're not thinking about that because they tried that and they didn't get anywhere. So they're like, okay, well, let me have some fun. I put it, with I was really trying hard to make relationships work, and that didn't work for me. So now I'm just gonna chill and relax and have some fun with it again. So I think, it kind of varies. And then of course it's up to you as a guy, what you want to deal with. For some guys who want to get married, soon, then maybe dating a girl who's in her late 20s and early 30s and is thinking about marriage is a great idea for you. If you're not there and you don't want to do that and don't want to feel rushed, then dating women in that age range is probably not ideal. Now, having said that, when it comes to dating younger women, a lot of guys get really frustrated dating younger women. And the reason they often get frustrated dating younger women is because younger women are a lot less consistent, let's say. They're a lot less consistent. I had a friend who was talking about this just a couple weeks ago. A girl messaged him. He'd been on one date with her, and then she messaged him at maybe like 10 at night or something, and she's like, hey, let's go out for a drink. Let's go to this club. I want to have a drink. And he's thinking, I got to get up for work tomorrow. It was like a Tuesday or something. And he's like, it's 10 o'clock. Why didn't she, it's 10 p.m. and she's asking me now and I've got things to do and blah, blah, blah. But that's what young girls are like. And so a lot of guys, they get frustrated with that. But if you want to date young girls, that's just going to be the way it is. Because what the girl thought, so it's funny because I met the girl through a friend, and I was talking about my friend to her, and she's like, oh, is it this guy? And I was like, oh, yeah, you know him. That was really funny. And so I heard the story from both sides. And she sort of said, yeah, I guess he's just not really interested because I invited him out and he didn't come. And so it was really funny because in her mind, she's thinking, I'm putting in this effort, and she is, because girls generally don't, especially Asian girls, generally don't invite guys out. So she's, from her perspective, putting her foot forward and saying, hey, I want to see you. And then, and then he's going, oh, this is really annoying. And so because they have this mismatch, then it didn't go anywhere. Now, I want to say a couple of things. It's probably true that if this girl had been a lot more attractive, probably my friend would have felt differently about it. So she's certainly not bad looking, but she wasn't like a stunner. So if she had been more attractive, I'm sure he would have just packed it in. Maybe he would have called in sick to work the next day or whatever. And he would have been like, yes, let's do it. So that is a factor. And so, as a girl, she might look at him and go, well, he's not anything all that special. And I invited him out and he didn't come. So, forget him. She certainly might think that. But what she's maybe not considering is what his other options are. And she may not realize that compared to his other options, she may not be the obvious choice for him. Now, this isn't to say that she is better than him or he's better than her or whatever, but it's about making decisions with limited information, right? Because they've only been out once. So they don't even know each other that well. She doesn't know his life that well. He doesn't know her life that well. And they're doing their best with the information they have. I was with a client one time, and we were at a club or a bar lounge, and he approached this girl who, she was a decent looking girl, but nothing amazing. And you would have thought that she would have been much more open to the interaction. It's not that it went badly, they just talked and she was friendly, but it didn't really, she wasn't putting in that much effort into it, and she looked like she was there alone, and so it was a bit, not what I would have expected. But then I found out that she was one of the DJs at the event. And it's like, oh, okay, now everything makes sense. Because as a DJ in the event, she knows a lot of people, she's gonna be the center of attention. And these are all things that are gonna change how she interacts with you, even though you can't know that by looking at her. So in a similar way, when women interact with guys, you're making an assessment on him based on very little information when you don't really know. And this is very interesting because this is one of the things that makes it very challenging for guys to date in a foreign culture. Because when you move to a different culture, their value system and their way of looking at guys is different. For example, let's say the way you spend money could be different. So in one place, if you have a beat up car and you have a nice apartment, they might think that's great. But in another place, they might think, what's wrong with this guy? If he has a nice apartment, why does he have a beat up car? But somebody else would go, oh, well, that's just smart financial thinking. So, different values by different cultures. So as a guy, it can be difficult. That's one of the things that makes it difficult when you go to another country and you date somewhere else, because what girls are looking for when they're trying to evaluate you can be different. Okay, so going back to the age thing about women. So a lot of times that's what guys find it very frustrating to date younger women, because you sort of have to be on their schedule in a way, and you have to show up when they're available, and you can't oftentimes make a plan and expect them to stick to it. Now, and I think the reason for this is, pretty much what you would expect, right? When you're a kid, you don't really make that many decisions about your life. You're being responsive to what your parents want and what your teachers want. And that's the same when you go to university, except now, instead of having except now you have even more teachers and they have more differing desires and they don't coordinate with each other. So it's like, instead of having, so now you have a bunch of different bosses. And when you're young, you're trying to figure out how to manage this. And then when you start working, it's the same thing. You have to manage your work and your energy levels, and you need to, be on a certain schedule, and it's just a lot to adjust to. And so when girls, and guys too, but when girls are young and they're adjusting to all of this stuff, it's harder for them, or they're less likely to be very consistent in their behavior. So, and I think it's the same for young guys too. It's just that no one cares. It's your own problem.
So what do you tell your clients then in terms of what kind of age group of women to be dating? Like, it kind of allude to it in this video. It depends on their life stage, right?
Yeah, definitely depends on their life stage. Because another thing is that because some guys, I think this is more of a Western guy thing, but a lot of Western guys, they want a girl who already has experience. And so if you want a girl who already has experience, I don't mean sexual experience, I mean life experience. I hear some guys, they say, oh, these young girls, they haven't done anything, they don't know anything. And so for them, they don't like that. And so for them, dating a girl who's younger is really unpleasant. But for most of the guys that I know, they definitely tend to prefer dating a girl who's, 23. Usually if you go younger than 23, it's just way too chaotic. But you can, but it just can be, it's so chaotic typically. But usually, 23 to 25, I'd say most of the guys that I've worked with, they really like that age range. It's like, the girl is excited about life. She hasn't had a lot of bad experiences in her life yet, so she brings a lot of positive energy to the interaction or interacting with you, and a lot of excitement. So I think that tends to be the age that guys prefer or enjoy the most. Although, as I was saying, because of that kind of unreliability and that inconsistency, it frustrates a lot of guys, and they would rather, go older because of that.
What about the emotional connection as well? Do you get that in younger women?
I guess it depends what you mean by emotional connection, because from my perspective, emotional connection comes from experiences you have together. So
deep conversations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you approach your deep conversations. I think you can have deep conversations with young women, but it's based on their experience. And so I think as you get older, the more time that you live on the planet, the more opportunity there is for bad things to happen to you. So if you're 30, you've had more bad things happen to you. Like, for example, when I was 22, I'd never missed an airplane. Now I've missed 50 airplanes by now, I don't know, right? So because you've never had those experiences, you don't worry about those things happening. But as you have these bad experiences, you start to worry more about bad things happening. And those bad things that do happen in your life, and I know missing airplanes is not really that bad. I mean, I'm talking about, illnesses, deaths in the family, failures in your life, whatever that means, whether that's you got fired from a job, whether that means that you had a boss that drove you nuts and made you, want to shoot yourself. Whatever, any of these things. It's just when you're 23, the chance of those things happening to you is so small. But as you get older, the chance is that bad things happen. They just accumulate. Bad things accumulate. And this is another thing. So, about the age thing is that, yes, women who are older have had more bad experiences. It's like, okay, let's talk about a woman who's been in a physically abusive relationship. The chance that she's been in a physically abusive relationship at the age of 22 is relatively low, because at that age they tend to be in a social network, whether that's school, typically it's school, that offers, and family, that offers some level of protection. But, you finish university, you move to a new city, you get a job, you're out on your own. So from that point on, the chance of something like that happening is much higher. So when you meet a woman, when she's 27 versus when she's 22, the chance that she's been through something traumatic, or it doesn't have to be super traumatic, but just bad, it's just more likely. So that's another, so that makes it, so it's no wonder that women are less excited about dating as they get older. It's no wonder. I mean, I had a friend who once said that, one of the differences between guys and girls, he said, with guys that I know who have slept with a lot of women are usually really cool guys. But with women, it's like the more guys they've slept with, the more mistakes they've made. Because what he's saying is that if she's not in a relationship with any of those guys, all of those guys that she slept with are guys she are in her past, and she didn't have a relationship with them, which in some way suggests that it wasn't worth sleeping with them. Now, I don't agree with that exactly. It's not exactly right. But there is some truth there to say that if she could go back in time, would she eliminate some of those guys? Probably. Whereas most guys, if you say, okay, if you could go back in time and eliminate some of the girls you had sex with, would you? Most of the guys would go, maybe there's like one or two where they're like, that was a really bad idea. But most of them, they'll be like, no, it was a great time. Great memories, right? Great memories. And so there's a difference because this is the difficult thing about being a woman. For a guy, sex is kind of a payoff, right? You go on a date or a few dates and you have sex and it's kind of like, okay, that was great. But for girls, sex is not the payoff. They can easily get sex. So sex is not a payoff for them. It's what do they get from that relationship with that guy? Or what do they get from knowing that guy? That's the payoff. Do they learn something? Do they create some great memories or something? So their payoff is longer term than ours is. Obviously guys also like to have long-term relationships and get a lot out of it. And any guy who says that they don't want to have a long-term relationship, that's not really true. They're just saying that because when they imagine what's necessary, when they imagine what they think is necessary to have a long-term relationship, they don't want to take on those responsibilities or make those sacrifices or those trade-offs. But they're oftentimes not correct about the trade-offs they need to make. Those trade-offs are based on, the crazy ex-girlfriend they had who called them at work crying on the phone 3 times a week because, her nail broke, right? It's like they're thinking about that girl and they're going, yeah, no, I can't have a relationship. And so they're using this idea in their mind to say that they don't want to have a relationship. But that's not true. They would love to be with a woman that makes them happy. And if it's just one woman that makes them happy, then they're happy, so that's good. I mean, it's very simple and straightforward. But anyway, so for guys, there's kind of this earlier payoff. I used to have a friend, and when he would sleep with a girl, and then the girl wouldn't meet him again. And this is something that's funny because when I was growing up, when I was young, I had no idea that girls will one night stand guys. The whole narrative in culture is that that's something that guys do to women. And then when I started having that experience, I was like, oh. Now, of course, I'm not happy about it. I mean, if I wanted to see the girl again and she doesn't want to see me again, of course I'm not happy about that. And girls are also not happy about it when it happens to them. But the main point is that, as my friend would say when that happened to him, he said, I fucked her, I win. Now, of course, he was saying this to make himself feel better because he didn't like that the girl didn't want to see him again, right? You take a girl out, you think she likes you, you're really excited, you have great sex with her, you can't wait to see her again, and then bang, she won't see you again. So that was his way of consoling himself. But there is, once again, a certain amount of truth in it. It's like, that is better than if I'd taken her out on a date and she just went home. Right? It's like, which is better? I took her on a date, we had sex, and then she never talked to me again, or I took her on a date, we didn't have sex, and she never talked to me again. Right? Obviously, we also had sex is better. Okay, so for guys, there's this earlier payout, or payoff rather, from the dating. And for girls, the payoff is much later. And so because the payoff is much later, it's like any kind of investment where the longer out the investment is, automatically there's just more risk involved. And so, it's a difficult problem for girls to manage and to figure that out. And you have to understand that, men and women are not aligned here so much. And I think as women get older and have more experiences of dating that didn't work out the way they wanted, they decide to be more careful. Now, here's the problem though. Them being more careful doesn't mean that they choose better. Because really what maybe they need to be doing is choosing differently. Right? So that's so important. It's not that you should just be more careful. It's that you should look at what the criteria are that you're using to select and maybe change that criteria. So let's just throw one out. This is one that guys get upset about a lot. Height. So a lot of girls will say, oh, I don't want to date anyone below a certain height. And it's like, okay, well, you could do that. And then, the girl has, a lot of bad dating experiences. She's never going to attribute those bad experiences to the fact that she only limited her search to guys that were above a certain height. Now, it's true that there are good guys at every height. Okay, I'm not saying that above a certain height, the guys are going to be bad. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that by eliminating a large pool of guys, you're now competing with a smaller number of guys for more, you're competing for a smaller number of guys with more women. So the number of guys is smaller, but the number of women that are interested in those guys is bigger for a relatively arbitrary trait. So that would be an example of like how you could choose differently. You could choose to eliminate criteria that don't really matter from a relationship perspective, that are just things that you like. I don't know. I don't know. I talked a lot.
Subscribe for more.
Okay. I hope you got a lot out of that. I know that I said a lot. So if there's anything that I covered that you want me to focus in on more in another video, just leave a comment and I'll do that. And like and subscribe and all that stuff. Thanks for joining me.